Check two, 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 two. Don't bring it up in the house. Just is he getting a signal? Hey, 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 hey. Two, 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 two. Check two, check two, check two, check two. Check two, 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 two. Check two, 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 two. Check, 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 check. Check two. Check two. Check two. Check two. Hey, hey. Check two. Check two. Check two. Check two. Check, 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 check.
Hello, hello. Is this on? I think this is on, yes. Can y'all hear me? Good evening and welcome. On behalf of our planning partners, thank you for joining us for this very important 2026 DeKalb Gubernatorial Forum, designed to provide voters like you with an opportunity to hear directly from candidates seeking to lead our state. My name is Munir Meghjani. I'm going to be your host for today and honored to have been part of the organizing committee. For transparency and honestly legal purposes, I wanted to note this forum is nonpartisan in nature, and all qualified candidates were invited to participate. I want to take a moment to thank all the candidates and their teams who did show up today for prioritizing this conversation and giving this community the transparency it deserves. I also wanted to thank all of you for showing up, those in person bearing the traffic, and those who made a more sustainable decision to stay home and avoid 285. And for those of you who are watching in the near future as well, thank you. Thank you for prioritizing this. There has been a lot of talk about democracy, but action is the true blueprint. And tonight, we're not just talking about it, but we're building it together. We're also honored to be joined by several elected officials and public servants, some who are still on the way. Surprisingly, they also hit the same traffic we do. But I will ask for you to hold your applause until the end once all of them are standing. Madam CEO Lorraine Cochran-Johnson and her cabinet, who I believe are all on the way from another meeting, DeKalb County Board of Commissioners and our Education Board, state senators, representatives, mayors, city council members, and if there are any other elected officials who I may or may not have called, will you please stand and be recognized? I like to do that so the audience knows who's to talk to after for things that they need. We would be remiss if we didn't take a moment to also recognize all of our high school, college students, and anyone who may be voting for the first or second time. Could you all please stand and be recognized as well? A lot of our volunteers are from high school right now as well. Thank you all for spending your evening and investing in our state, and congratulations on achieving this wonderful milestone. Tonight reflects the power of civic engagement, collaboration, and informed participation. I would like to acknowledge the coalition of distinguished community partners who came together to make this event happen. And in true DeKalb fashion, it is a long and diverse list, a testament to the power of our community. I hope you will all take a moment and make sure to visit their tables outside if you haven't already done so. Once again, this is going to be in alphabetical order, and I will ask you to hold your applause until the very end. I will ask one leader from each of these organizations to please stand and be recognized as well. 100 Black Men of DeKalb County, Incorporated, AARP Lithonia Chapter, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Incorporated, Decatur Alumnae Chapter, Georgia Association of Black County Officials, the Ismaili Community for Southeastern United States, J.H. Austin Consulting, LLC, League of Women Voters, DeKalb, Leadership DeKalb, our presenting sponsor, MYM Investments, National Black MBA Association, Atlanta Chapter, the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Decatur-DeKalb Chapter Incorporated, the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Stone Mountain, Lithonia Chapter Incorporated, the National Council for Negro Women, DeKalb Chapter, Peach State Muslim Action, Georgia Muslim Voter Project, the People's Agenda, and last but not least, the Top Ladies of Distinction, New Rock. Will you all please join me in thanking these partners for sponsoring, supporting, and organizing the event today? Thank you all so much. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce tonight's moderator, Maya T. Prabhu, who will guide our discussion and ensure a fair and balanced exchange for all our participants. Maya is an Atlanta-based journalist known for her in-depth coverage of Georgia government and politics. She spent nearly a decade at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, where she reported on abortion legislation, criminal justice, social issues, and the inner workings of the state legislature. She recently joined Peach Poll, a new Georgia-focused political news and analysis platform where she serves as the editorial director. A Spelman College graduate, Maya also holds a master's degree from the University of Maryland. Will y'all please help me welcome Maya T. Prabhu.
Good evening. My voice doesn't carry, so everyone can hear me? Perfect. All right. Good evening and thank you. The purpose of tonight's forum is to provide voters with an opportunity to hear directly from the candidates in a structured and respectful environment. The rules of this evening are simple. Responses must remain within time limits, no interruptions while another candidate is speaking, rebuttals will occur at my discretion, and audience members are asked to remain respectful throughout the forum. Each candidate will have 90 seconds for opening and closing statements. Responses to questions will be limited to 90 seconds, with rebuttals, when permitted, limited to 30 seconds. A timer is visible in the auditorium. You will see a green signal at 30 seconds remaining and a red signal when time is expired. At that point, I will ring the bell. I was gonna bring a buzzer, but candidates may finish their sentence. If needed, I will indicate when it's time to move on. So let's begin. Let's introduce our candidates. First, we have, in alphabetical order, Olu Brown, Clark Dean, Jeff Duncan, Jason Estevez, Derek Jackson, Michael Thurmond, and Kenneth Yaxer. Thank you. You may be seated. All right. We're going to begin with our opening statements. Each candidate will have 90 seconds, and we will again go in alphabetical order. So, first up, Olu Brown.
How's everybody doing? Thank you, DeKalb County and all the encompassing cities. My name is Olu Brown, and I'm running for governor of Georgia because I want to build a better Georgia for everyone. Our hearts broke over the weekend as we saw 8 kids who lost their lives in Shreveport, Louisiana. And many people would say that's Shreveport and not Georgia. I am fighting to be a governor who protects all of our children, not only from trauma and death like we experience in Shreveport, but to make sure every kid in Georgia gets an excellent and a quality education, to make sure every kid in Georgia gets the mental health therapy that they need, and to make sure Georgia is leading the way, not only in education excellence, but also in teacher compensation. As your next governor, we are focused on all things affordability, from healthcare accessibility and affordability, from the cost of gas to the cost of groceries. Friends, we have to stop electing folks to this office who have everything to represent a vast majority of people who can't afford much of anything. I know the cost of a gallon of milk. I know the cost of a loaf of bread. I also know what it feels like for a senior to have to choose dinner or a prescription drug. As your next governor, everyone can thrive. North of here to the mountains, to Metro, to Middle Georgia, to South and Coastal Georgia. With a $14 billion surplus, there is more than enough for every Georgian. My name is Olu Brown, and I am running to be your next governor. Go to olu4ga.com and vote for me May 19th.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Clark Dean.
Well, good afternoon, DeKalb County. Now, I'm going to be straight with you guys. I know that DeKalb County is Mr. Mike Thurman's home turf. I get it. And if you're ever curious, you knew it when you were driving in. I want you to know I respect Mike. He's a good man. And I'm just grateful that you guys are here to give me a chance to make my case and to earn your trust. So I'm not a politician. I've been raising a family and building businesses and growing nonprofits right here in Atlanta for the last 30 years, well, 22 years exactly. And I believe that we have so much promise. You see, we've been number one in business for like 12 years, but many of you in this room may not have felt that. You see, the fact of the matter is I think we need to be number one in lots of things, and we shouldn't be second to dead last in maternal mortality. Right? Families shouldn't be this squeezed. Taxes shouldn't be this high. Education and healthcare shouldn't be this inaccessible. These are real problems to solve, and we need competent executive leadership to solve them. Now, leadership starts with listening, and so that's what I've been doing. You haven't heard a lot about me, probably because I've been listening. And I've come up with this ASAP plan for Georgia that we need to do ASAP. It starts with affordability, moves to strength, accessibility, and prosperity for all Georgians as soon as possible. You see, guys, we need to move at the speed of business. We don't have time to move at the speed of government. And again, we need competent executive leadership to do it. There are 100,000 people in the governor's office, 100,000 people in the executive branch. This is a big job. And the question I want to ask you is, who is the most qualified to be the CEO, your CEO, because you guys are the bosses, and I hope I earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. It's an honor to be here this evening here in South DeKalb. It's an honor to be running for governor as a proud Democrat. It's been nearly 30 years since the Democrats won the governor's race in Georgia, and it's a pretty easy reason to point to. It's because you got to get more than the base to win a governor's race in Georgia. I'm building that coalition of Democrats, independents, and yes, even disgusted Republicans to show up and vote for not only me, but other Democrats up and down the ticket. To do that, I'm staying laser focused on the three issues that most of you and most Georgians are worried about each and every day: the affordability crisis, the healthcare crisis, and of course, the Donald Trump crisis. Now look, I've got an interesting journey to get here. I started my political career as a Republican. I'm sure you'll hear a little bit about that this evening in the discussion, but it's been a journey that I've learned a lot about. I've learned how to work across the aisle. I've learned how to work with folks like Stacey Abrams on rural hospital tax credit bills. I've learned how to pass hate crimes legislation. I've learned how to stand up to a sitting president, speak at the DNC, campaign with Kamala Harris for 8 straight weeks, and proud to switch parties and run as a proud Democrat. Look forward to answering your questions. Honestly, I look forward to having a great discussion. Look, I'm not here to just earn your vote. I'm here to earn your trust. Look forward to doing that. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Estevez, and I am the proud husband to my wife, Ariel, who is here this evening, a nurse practitioner from Albany, Georgia, and we are the proud parents of Jaden and Zoe. We are small business owners. We own 2 breakfast restaurants across the state and an urgent care. So when people ask me why I'm running to be governor, it's because I know that Georgians are sick and tired of working harder than they've ever worked and barely getting by. And it's because of the old politics and politicians who have continuously put the interests of billionaires and special interests ahead of your interests and your families. And because of that, we are in crisis. And in times of crisis, I've always run towards the fight, and that's what I'm going to do as governor of this state. I am from the south side of Columbus, Georgia, and I was raised by 2 parents who didn't go to college, but they taught me everything I need to know. To love my God, to work hard at everything that I did, and to leave my community better than how I found it. Those are the values that I've taken with me as a middle school social studies teacher, as chair of the Atlanta School Board, and as a state senator. I will stand up and fight back against Donald Trump, but I'm also going to make sure to focus in on what matters the most, and that's your health, your wealth, and your opportunities. That's why as governor, I'm going to expand access to health care. I'm going to make sure that we lower the cost of living, that we fight for our democracy, and that we invest in our education system to ensure our children have more opportunities than what we've had. I'm building a multiracial, multi-generational coalition that is not only going to win this primary, but it's going to win the general election as well. So I'm asking for your vote, and I'm asking you to join that coalition. Thank you so much.
Ooh, that light is bright. Good evening, DeKalb. Good evening, DeKalb. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Listen, see, I got up early this morning because I had to go talk to some veterans. And then they are like 80 and 90, 92 years of age. And they inspired me and they gave me some energy. They said, Derek, we need to win this race. Let me tell you a little bit about who I am in the 90 seconds that they gave me. See, I started off my naval career at the age of 17. I know I don't look it, but I just turned 60. But I served 22 years in the United States Navy. I went in as an E1, and for my military vets, you all know that's the absolute bottom. But I went from E1 to E7 in 8 years in the Navy. It typically takes 15 years. See, the Navy was a master class to me. And as one that's working on my 4th degree, a PhD, the Navy was a master class. It taught me leadership, experience, and service for everyone. I'm going to be a leader with vision and provision, not division. And see, when I retired from the Navy, I went into corporate America, did that for 10 years, worked for an awesome company named GE, and then I'm on my 10th year now as a state representative. That's 42 years of leadership, experience, and service. But amongst everything, all my titles and all my capacity, the thing I enjoy the most is being a husband. See, my wife and I, Camilla Jackson, we have 7 amazing children. And tonight you're going to hear me focus on family, because with family, we can get this state done. Healthcare and everything else. So I see, I got your red flag. I look forward to being with you all.
Good evening. I'm Mike Thurman, and I'm running and working hard to become the next governor of the state of Georgia. And as I thought about why I'm running, looking out at this audience, I figured it all out for tonight. I'm running because of you. I'm running because of men and women all across the state of Georgia who are working 2 and 3 jobs, working twice as hard, but able to purchase half as much. I'm running for those 500,000 Georgians who lost their health insurance over the last 30 days because of Donald Trump's insensitivity in Washington. I'm running because I know that we can build a better Georgia. I'm honored to be back in South DeKalb, thrilled to be here at Port of Sanford, delighted to be with members of our governing authority, and most importantly, I'm honored to be with you. I'm surrounded by people who knows what it means to fight to save a school district in trouble. I'm surrounded by people who knows what it means to fight and not switch and not run and not give up when everybody else had ridden us off. This is the moment. This is our Edmund Pettus Bridge moment. This is John Lewis and Hosea Williams standing at the foot of that bridge in March 1965. What I'm asking you to do is to have the courage of our forebears and to go forth. Look, I know what's going on in Washington, but I ain't tired, I ain't scared, and I'm ready for the fight. Thank y'all.
How y'all doing tonight? So my name's Ken Yasger, and most of you probably haven't heard of me before. And the reason is, you haven't heard of me because I'm not supposed to be up here, for the same reason you're not supposed to be up here. You don't have millions of dollars. You don't have lobbyists giving you money telling you what to say. You're not entrenched in the political system. I'm up here because you deserve to be up here. I've been in the military for 15 years. That's what brought me to Georgia from Illinois. My dad was in the Air Force for 24 years. He retired there. But by the grace of God, I got stationed here in Savannah, Georgia, Hunt Army Airfield, 1st Ranger Battalion, where I did 2 deployments to Afghanistan with them. Joined the Guard in 2015, where I deployed in 2019 a 3rd time to Afghanistan, and then in 2024 I had a 4th deployment to the Middle East. I'm not saying that like I'm some kind of hero. I've just been a servant my whole life, and I'm just a bartender on Tybee Island. And I say that because somebody during this campaign said, I've heard you speak, and you sound like you're better than just a bartender. Well, I'm running because there's no such thing as just a bartender, just a server, just a garbage collector, just a teacher. They're not just jobs. They're running this state, and they don't have a voice. I'm still paying my own gas prices. I'm still paying my own power bills, my own water bill. I still pay my own rent for my 2-bedroom apartment in Savannah. And I see you. I'm running because you need a voice. Republican, Democrat, Independent, most of these politicians don't care. I'm running because I do. And I always want everybody to know that I will see you and I will not forget you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. We are going to move into the question portion of the forum. So again, the questions will rotate. We'll see how I feel like calling on y'all. And each response, so we're going to do this question is going to be for everyone. Each response, again, 90 seconds, and then I will decide whether or not we need any follow-ups. So let's start with an issue that affects every Georgian. We've heard a lot about rising costs, from housing to groceries to insurance. If you could only tackle one of those in your first year, which would you prioritize and why? And we're going to start, I think, in the middle with Mr. Estevez.
Great. So the most important thing that we need to tackle right now is obviously the cost of living in the state and the fact that we've seen our costs go up in every single aspect. But healthcare is in crisis. And I tell folks all the time that you can't go to work, there is no wealth building unless you have your health. And because of the fact that Republicans have, for the last 15 years, refused to expand Medicaid, and support the Affordable Care Act, we have over 1 million people in this state that are uninsured. We've had dozens of rural hospitals close. Not just rural hospitals, hospitals all over the state that have closed. And as a result, Georgians are not getting the health care that they need in order to lead healthy lives. So what I would do in my first year is focus in on health care, expanding access to Medicaid, but also lowering the cost of private health insurance. I want to make sure that we're investing in our mental health services that has left a system that is broken and has left far too many Georgians behind. And just as important, make sure that we end our maternal mortality crisis, a crisis that has led to the preventable deaths of multiple black women in Georgia. And a big piece of that issue is the fact that Republicans passed a deadly abortion ban. And I would take steps to issue an executive order to reverse that abortion ban so that we can have a much healthier state, safer state to have babies in Georgia.
Thank you. Let's go down the table to your left.
Okay. So healthcare is our number one issue, ladies and gentlemen. Without your health, nothing else matters. Nothing else is critical to you. See, my first wife that I was with for 31 years was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2014. And it was then, during those 18 months, when I took a sabbatical from GE, I discovered then what I see still today, nearly 7 years later. And that was that our system is failing us. There's no reason why 3 years ago, 169 women died in Georgia. Their death certificates stamped preventable death. And the reason why those 169 women died, yes, we can expand Medicaid, but we need doctors. 82 counties out of 159 counties, you cannot find an OBGYN. And in that same year, 772 children died because 67 counties, you can't find a pediatrician. And for those men, such as myself, just turned 60, I need a urologist. 110 counties, you can't find a urologist. We have a healthcare desert. It is more than a crisis. And if I can keep us alive and have a fighting chance, yes, I know God is the Alpha and Omega, but he gave us the capability of having CDC right here. I don't personally know all the answers, but we have some smart folks in Georgia to how to fix this thing. And so healthcare's got to be number one, and then affordability is number two, because our bills was $100,000 a month, and she still ended up dying. And so for 2 years, I was a widow. And so that's the reason why what propels me to focus on healthcare. Thank you.
I'm going to utilize some of the strategies that I learned right here in DeKalb County. Similar to what we've done by expanding the number of community health clinics in DeKalb County, one on Flat Shoals and now one on Candler Road. I will establish a network of subsidized community clinics all across the state of Georgia. We'll build 5 micro hospitals where we expanded the emergency room and ICU at Emory-Hillendale with a $14 million investment. I will increase the number of child care scholarships through the CAPS program by 20,000 scholarships. The average cost of child care for young working parents is $1,000 a month. These scholarships would be like giving you a $1,000 a month raise. I'll establish 20,000 additional scholarships. I started that program when I was the director of the Department of Family and Children's Services. One other thing I'm going to do, something I learned at a National Conference of Negro Women meeting, Dr. Keith, in Macon, Georgia. We are going to eliminate the tax on women's feminine products. It is a disgrace that women are being forced to pay taxes on those products. I learned sitting there at that meeting that 1 out of every 4 young girls stay out of school a week each month. About a third of women don't go to work. Georgia has an $18 billion surplus, and there is no way on God's earth that we should be taxing feminine products the way we do in Georgia. That'll save money, and it'll demonstrate our respect for our ladies in our communities.
So I would like to focus on not just housing, but where people are housed. And what I mean by that is we can make it easier to buy homes all we want, but it's not going to be a quick fix. But something we can help is the renters. A lot of people still pay rent. I still pay rent. I used to live in an apartment complex where my rent for a studio apartment was $1,300. A company from South Carolina came and bought it out. My rent was going to jump to $2,000. That was one year. That's crazy. So I want to stop people want to talk about stopping out of like other countries from buying out Georgia farmland. How about we stop other states from buying out our apartment complexes, our housing developments? One of the reasons I'm also a Republican is I believe in small government. What Republicans used to believe in is small government. So my question is, why is there a state ban on rent control? Shouldn't that be a local government issue? So why does the state ban that? So I would work on eliminating the state ban on rent control and let the local governments take care of the people the way they're supposed to, like this fine gentleman did in DeKalb. I want to get the government out of our lives as much as possible. Also, I don't want to get, healthcare is another big issue. I don't want to get rid of Medicaid, but if we just talk about expanding Medicaid, we're just expanding the government's control. I want to keep people on Medicaid who need it, but give them more options to get off of it and get better care. I'm in the military. I have military health care. It's not great. Government run anything doesn't always work, and I want to make it more privatized and help the people who actually need it.
My name is Olu Brown, and one of the things you'll hear from me tonight are my personal stories. I started a faith community with 25 volunteers that became the largest Methodist congregation in the state of Georgia. And I retired about 3.5 years ago and opened up a company. And so our healthcare shifted from church to the exchange. And as of January of this year, our monthly healthcare for our family is more than our monthly mortgage. It is devastating. If you elect me as governor, you won't have to convince me of the need. I am an everyday Georgian with an everyday family, and I truly understand healthcare affordability is a top issue. In my first 100 days, we'll take a portion of our $14 billion surplus, and we will give a 15% discount to those who are paying high monthly healthcare premiums. In addition to that, we'll invest more in mental health. Our county jails, our emergency rooms, our school teachers cannot be the first line of defense for mental health. We have to do better and invest more in our state for our children and our adults. I have a therapist that I meet with once a month, and I believe therapy is important, and as your next governor, I'll stand up and tell 11 million people I have a therapist, and as a state, we're focusing on mental health. And not only will we focus here in Metro, we only have one trauma hospital in this region. I'll make sure in the key regions in Georgia, we have a Trauma One hospital. And then finally, we'll focus on our rural health. We'll make sure in places like Blakely County, with a 26-bed healthcare facility, they have all of the needs that they need, so that if you get in a car accident an hour from here, it doesn't cost you your life.
Sorry, I just got a note. It is messing up the lighting for our folks watching at home if you stand, so please stay seated going forward.
I will stay seated then. Absolutely. So it's good to see y'all. Look, there's no question we have an affordability crisis. My ASAP plan, it starts with affordability for a reason. But the fact of the matter is, the government can actually do something about it. We have to be more creative than the typical government programs. I'll give an example. There's this idea called the theory of constraints that says that any system is governed by a constraint. It's like if you have a big garden hose, right? You're trying to get water through the garden hose, and you have a big kink, the water doesn't come out, right? Now, you got to have lots of kinks in the hose, and you could fix all the little kinks, but unless you get the big one, you don't see any more water coming out of that hose, right? Well, let me tell you, we got a lot of kinks in state government. We got a lot of kinks in healthcare in particular, and I'll show an example of what that is. You see, right now, we're second to dead last in maternal mortality. It's a massive problem. We've heard already how many counties don't have obstetricians, right, in the counties. So how do we creatively reduce the cost and improve the access to care? One way to do that is actually by expanding our midwifing credentials here in Georgia. Did you know a midwife right now, it requires you to be an RN, to then get a master's degree and then get additional training. It takes almost 6 to 8 years to do it. Those jobs are pretty good jobs. They don't pay that much. So there are not a lot of folks that do it. However, we can create a 4-year undergraduate education that prepares midwives to do this in a credentialed fashion, serving Georgians under the direction of OBs in a way that actually expands the capacity for healthcare, creates jobs in urban and rural areas, and actually does it with home house visits. There are creative opportunities like this all over, but we need creativity to get it done.
This affordability crisis is literally touching the lives of everybody in this room, everybody in this state. Whether you own a business or living check to check, the affordability crisis is real. And the problem is everybody's talking about it, but nobody's doing anything about it. As governor, I want to create a jumpstart fund. I want to take 17 of the $17 billion state's rainy day fund. I want to take 10%, $1.7 billion, and wrap it around the axle of poverty. I want to take $200 million and better fund the CAPS program. As Mike talked about, the CAPS program is a child care scholarship program that allows working families to be able to go back to work because they can finally afford child care. I want to take dollars and better fund the TANF program to help a family that needs temporary assistance for a power bill or a ride to and from work. I want to scale up affordable housing programs like Mayor Dickens' program, like Mayor Van Johnson in Savannah and others. Not recreate the wheel as governor or as a state, but to give those resources and to scale up communities. Also, I want to expand Medicaid. It's part of this affordability crisis. Our family's paying nearly $3,000 a month for our health care for my wife and I and 3 boys. $3,000 a month. Many of you have equal stories. You've been pulled off your ACA subsidies. You've been yanked off of the Medicaid rolls because Donald Trump wanted to give tax cuts to billionaires. As a former Republican, I've literally looked at every way to improve our state's healthcare system. You can't do it without expanding Medicaid. As governor, I will work across the aisle to get those votes and secure those votes to build a coalition big enough to deliver on those promises.
Thank you. So now I want to spend a few moments digging deeper into how each candidate would approach leadership and decision making. And we're going to start with Mr. Duncan. So as you just mentioned, you served as Republican Lieutenant Governor and recently switched parties. Walk us through an instance where your position changed. What caused it to change and when?
Well, the most impactful leaders in my life, both on the baseball field, in the business world, and in politics, have been those leaders that lead by example. They're willing to stand up and say they got something right, and they're also willing to say they stand up and say they got something wrong. The abortion issue is an issue that I got wrong. As Lieutenant Governor, I was the president of the Senate. I oversaw that body, and I was wrong to think that room full of state senators knew better than millions of women, and they don't. When Roe got overturned and I started to hear those unbelievably difficult personal scenarios, difficult medical situations, it became abundantly obvious that women deserve the right to choose between themselves, their faith, their family, and their doctors. And day one as governor, I will sign an executive order that clarifies doctors can practice medicine without fear of prosecution, and also lead the charge to implement repealing the 6-week ban and meet millions of women where they want us to. Here's the thing. I think there's a number of Republicans that are ready for this to happen. In fact, I know there's a number of Republicans that would help us in this effort. They know it's the right thing to do. I want to build that coalition. I don't want to demonize. I want to build a coalition to do the right thing. Certainly an issue that I've got all the moral clarity. And look, I apologize to anybody that this law has negatively affected, and it has. It has taken the lives of individuals, and that weight is heavy on my shoulders. I look forward to getting it right.
Thank you. Mr. Estevez, you've served in the legislature. What is one policy you championed that didn't pass, and how would you get it done as governor?
One of the policies that I championed as a legislator that didn't pass, but I wish it would have, was a bill that would have allowed the state of Georgia to supplement the Affordable Care Act subsidies in the event that the federal government did not do it itself. And we all saw what happened. Donald Trump played politics with our health care, and as a result, we have 500,000 more people who are uninsured in this state. And now Georgia has over 1 million people who are uninsured. So what I would do as governor is I would work with Republicans and Democrats to get that legislation passed so that Georgia can step into the gap and make sure that we get people covered across the state. That helps to insure people, but it also gives us the resources that we'll need to make sure that people have access to the hospitals and the clinics all across the state. You shouldn't have to drive more than an hour, more than 45 minutes to get the care that you need, whether it's an emergency room or a pediatrician or OBGYN. And for too many people across this state, that's the reality for them. And because of politics that are being played, because of the politicians who rather bend the knee to Donald Trump, rather not embarrass Donald Trump, we have people who are dying because of the lack of access to health care. That changes when I'm governor. And the good news is that there are Republicans who want to join us in this fight.
Thank you. Mr. Thurmond, as we all know here, you've led a large and complex county government. What is one decision that you've made that you would handle differently, and what did you learn?
Well, actually, it was the most complex job in DeKalb is not the CEO, it's the superintendent of the DeKalb County Schools. Yeah, I'm serious, give me a hand, it really is. It's much more complex. And the most difficult job in any county, I always think, is the superintendent's job. And the big mistake, I don't even think it's a mistake, the thing that I did not do that I wish I had done more effectively was to start and finish construction of some of our schools, particularly in certain zip codes. We should have done more, particularly in our Title I schools. We should have invested more in our teachers and invested more in our students. With that being said, that experience changed my life. As a result of being the superintendent, I learned something from the failures and the successes. And see, sometimes in life you learn more from defeat than you can from victory. And so what I learned in the things that I did not accomplish is that, number one, failure is not final, nor is success everlasting. I also learned by being surrounded by 100,000 students that I need to focus more on the next generation and not the next election. Because if you focus on the next generation, there's nothing you can't accomplish. So I learned that as your superintendent.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Jackson. You ran for lieutenant governor in 2022 and did not win. What did that race teach you, and how has it changed your approach to this race?
Yeah, so I ran for lieutenant governor in 2022. And what I learned was that it's not necessarily the candidate's fault that you do not win. It's the system that you're up against. You see, in that system, like what I'm experiencing now, where you qualify and not everyone is sitting on the stage. You have an organization that selects the top 3 out of 400 people, right? That's what I learned. And we have to stop manufacturing who should be the next candidate of anything. Let the people decide. See, I put my life on the line in the Navy for this democracy. In order for the democracy to work, we, the people, need to decide, not organizations. And let me tell you, one of the things I learned before he went on to glory from John Lewis, he said, Derek, when things are not right, not fair, unjust, you got a moral obligation to do something. And so I've been calling it out. It's not petty, right? We're censoring great candidates. And the people deserves to hear from all of us. I'm going to have to leave here tonight because I've been asking the DPG, why are you allowing for all these different forms to be on top of each other? That's a disservice to the voters. So that's what I learned when I ran for lieutenant governor, and I'm still relearning the same thing right now running for governor. Let the people decide and let the people hear from all candidates.
I did have a quick follow-up. What is something that is squarely in your control that you learned that you can apply to this race?
The thing that I learned the most is continue to meet people where they are, right? And so over the last 10 months, we've traveled to 32 of the 159 counties. And I also discovered that I have to continue to speak up and speak out. That's under my control, right? And we need to make sure that the voice of the people is part of this process. We gotta stop censoring the people. Big money, right? That's wrong. In the 10 years I've been under that gold dome, I'm the only candidate that's been under that gold dome for 10 years as a legislator. And I watch big money continue to do the wrong thing for our people. We got to stop that process. That's not a democracy. So that's what I continue to do.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, you're running without prior elected experience. What decision have you made that shows you're ready to lead at the state level?
Well, I've always said the shape that our state is in is by and large in part to career politicians. And if I had the experience of a career politician and we see some of the issues that we have, I don't want that kind of experience. I'm an outsider, and I don't have an opportunity in my day world to say the Republicans didn't allow me to do it or the Democrats didn't allow me to do it. I walk past someone's desk who's planning their wedding, someone who's purchasing a home, someone who wants to buy a car, and I can't look at them and say, we couldn't meet payroll. As a leader, you have to get things done. And as your next governor, I will make sure I will come through on the promises that I make. But one of the things that I reflect on, that faith community in East Point, we purchased a property that was formerly owned by International Paper Company. It was in disrepair, 76,000 square feet, 10 acres of land, and now it is an economic engine for the city of East Point. And one of the things that I wish I would have done is had that kind of advancement around the community that surrounded us, because there's a lot of warehousing, in particular in parts of DeKalb and South Fulton, where these companies come into our communities and they make billions of dollars over the citizens' heads and often don't have the expression of the store in that community, such as Sprouts. They warehouse in certain communities that are food deserts, and they have their stores in other communities that are wealthier. I wish I would have stood up to more of those corporations and said, if you warehouse in our community, you're going to have a store in our community.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Dean, you've positioned yourself outside the political establishment. What is one issue both parties have gotten wrong, and what would you do differently?
I love this question.
You're
so
welcome.
you see people talk about a lot of crises. And y'all, we got a lot of crises in this state. We got a lot of crises in this country. But let me tell you, a lot of these crises from both parties have been manufactured. We got a lot of manufactured crises by politicians that want to point to crises to then fight them and put out the fire that they started. The fact of the matter is, the biggest crisis we are facing as a society right now is the crisis of division. And I tend to be the only candidate that talks about the crisis of division. How do you actually work with people to bring people together, whatever letter they have after their name? And the fact of the matter is, you have to be authentic, you have to be yourself, and you have to listen. You have to build understanding with other people. You have to start thinking about visions that are bigger than yourself, visions that can actually make a difference in this state and make them so compelling and collective that everyone sees themselves better in it. Only then can you get people to roll up their sleeves and do that hard work of collaborative problem solving to actually make progress towards that. I think both sides have gotten this wrong for a long time, and I'm here and my record proves it. Guys, I've worked all over this city of Atlanta, bringing people together, whether it's Chick-fil-A Foundation or the Carter Center Board of Counselors. I operate across wide spectrums because I want to serve all of you.
And last but not least, Mr. Yaxer, with several candidates offering similar priorities, what is one policy where your approach is clearly different, and why does that matter?
So I believe the affordability crisis is something I have a leg up on the other candidates because I'm still completely living it right now. I'm still paying the regular bills. I don't have an accountant. I'm running this campaign mostly on my own funds. These other candidates talk about who can raise the most money, who's suing who for money. I'm paying for my own gas to get from Savannah to Atlanta just about 4 times a week, while on a bartender salary, VA disability, National Guard money once a month. I still see the regular person on the ground. Now, I don't attack the money. I'm not attacking the candidates for their money. If I had $10 million, I'd spend it too. But the week that the lieutenant governor announced his campaign and loaned himself $10 million, and then another candidate sued him over it, because it's all about money now, I was at Kroger on Gwinnett Street in downtown Savannah, and I was behind an older gentleman with a walker. He had a 6-pack of eggs and a loaf of bread. His card declined. I didn't have a campaign shirt. I didn't campaign to him. I bought him a 12-pack of eggs and a loaf of bread. What makes me different is I still see that man every single day. And I will always see that man. Thank you.
Thank you. As Mr. Jackson alluded to earlier, he's going to have to step out. So can you guys give him a round of applause as he heads out to his next commitment? Before we move to our next topic, we're going to hear from one of our student participants. The next question will be asked by a 100 Black Men of DeKalb County Leadership Academy student from Cristo Rey Atlanta Jesuit High School, who plans to attend North Carolina A&T next year to study biology.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking your time today and allowing me to ask this question. My name is Lincoln, and my question is for Mr. Thurman. With the rising college tuition and the overall cost of living, what is your plan for high school graduates like myself wanting to attend a post-secondary educational institution, being mindful that many of us will also be first-time voters?
Well, I'm going to create this scholarship. No. No, first of all, let's give her a round of applause. Isn't that beautiful? Thank you so much. Great question. Well, here I will do similar to what we've always done. Number one, we create jobs for our students in DeKalb County. While I was CEO, we created 4,000 jobs for our students here age 14 to 24 to give them the opportunity to develop skills and relationships so that they will be prepared, number one, to move into the workforce and also to go to college. We have to create internships in the summer. As a governor, I'm going to expand the needs-based scholarship program. Let's give Georgia a hand, but we need to do more to help not just the A students, but we need to help students like myself that was a C student but had A ambitions, and that will be so helpful in helping young people, particularly those who are attending school here in Georgia. You made a great choice at North Carolina A&T. The Aggies are a great, great institution, but we have to do more, particularly at our public schools. I will also do this. Encourage our students. Let them know that it's great to attend the University of Georgia, North Carolina A&T, Spelman, Morehouse, Payne, Georgia State. But we have to help parents and students recognize that it's also a great idea not just to go to Georgia Tech, but also to go to DeKalb Tech. For those students who decide not to go to a four-year institution, they help them realize that in this economy, skills are equally as important as degrees. We live in it, so thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Lincoln. Another round of applause for our student. All right, let's come back to an issue that every governor will have to address: education. So this question is going to be for everyone. I'll decide where I'm starting in a second. Georgia has fully funded its education formula in recent years, yet many districts say it's still not enough. Is the issue funding or how the money is being used? And what would you change first? And let's start with Mr. D.
Well, thank you. So the problem is actually both. So in order to run an effective operation, we actually have to run efficiently and effectively. So how many of you guys have ever waited in line for something in a government, services, any kind of service from the government, waited too long, had too long of a conversation, been put on hold too long, all this kind of stuff, right? So this idea of theory of constraints, this is like a real thing. I've got real professionals that are helping me, they're experts in this, that have put together a 100-day plan for substantially reducing the cost of our government. Now, what does that mean? That means that we got more money to spend that actually makes a difference to you, and ultimately we could actually get a little more money back in your pocket because the government doesn't need it. That actually works in our education as well. Education has been going through the roof. Our technical colleges going through the roof, our university system going through the roof, and we can apply these same systems to actually bringing down the cost. It's not just putting more money into it. If we spend the money more wisely, then everyone benefits. This is what you can do if you have a competent executive that understands how to lead a large, expansive organization like this and can empower the people at every layer of government to excel, where every public servant is a problem solver and every public manager is a visionary. And that's what I'll do.
Thank you. Let's come down the table this way.
Well, education is important to me. My mother was my fourth grade school teacher, and my undergrad degree is in education. I have a lifetime teaching certificate for grades 1 through 8. We have to address education. Right now in the U.S., we're halfway, and that's not good enough. 40, 50 years ago, we could educate kids to compete with Alabama and Florida and Texas and Louisiana, but now we have to educate kids to compete with Asia and Africa and Australia. We have to train them to be international citizens. So one of the things we have to reform is the QBE formula. I had a wonderful opportunity on Sunday to be with the Georgia Association of Educators, and my promissory note is to support a council to reform QBE. It doesn't address the property taxes in counties that aren't as wealthy. It doesn't address all of the STEAM and STEM opportunities, from the arts to music to physical education. It doesn't address mental health. It's a formula from 1985, and we can't build a 2026 or 2027 school system on something that is more than 40 years old. In addition to that, we've got to pay our educators more. I remember my mother sitting on a couch with a checkbook with tears in her eyes as a single parent because there was never enough. And so we're number 1 in SEC football, but we're last in first-time teacher pay. We're going to start a baseline of $50,000 or more for first-time teachers in Georgia. And for veteran teachers, 5 years or more, we're going to eliminate your state income tax and give you an immediate $3,500 to $4,000 raise. And we're going to address mental health in our schools so that our teachers are not therapists, but they're there to do what we ask them to do, and that's to teach our kids.
So ever since I started my campaign, something that's been on my website and I talk about on a regular basis is 80% of education salaries in the state of Georgia go to administrative positions. They're politicians. They're not the soldiers on the ground in the classroom. I want to cap administrative salaries and give that money back to the teachers. No, money doesn't fix everything, but it sure does help. And these teachers are doing the work. They shouldn't have to be the parents, but sometimes they are. We have to work on accountability, how the money's being used. I live in Chatham County. One of my best friends in Savannah, her passion is the education system, the schools, and the kids of Georgia. She has documentation on documentation of misuse of funds in Chatham County in the public school system. They lost, I believe it was like $2 million in 1 year in the budget. It was unaccounted for. She sent it to the AG's office, and they said, that's too political of an issue for an election year. How are kids too big of an issue for an election year? The kids are what matters. That's what we forgot. We've forgotten where it starts, whether it's education, mental health. It all starts in elementary school now. The division that we keep talking about, that I've been preaching my whole life, we're killing our children because we can't get along as adults. We have to focus on the teachers and the kids, not the administrators. That's where I'll start.
When you elect me, please, as your next governor, I will be the first former school superintendent to serve as governor of the state of Georgia, and things are going to change. You have a choice to elect a promise or look at performance. When I became the superintendent of DeKalb County, our educators were laboring under a 7 or 8 furlough days, i.e. less than what they actually contracted for. We eliminated the furlough days and reinstituted raises, not just for teachers, but bus drivers and food service and janitors as well. That's performance, not a promise. I will establish a commission to revolutionize the funding formula for QBE in this state, and I will serve as chair of that commission. The biggest issue is the formula does not wait for poverty. So that means that children with disabilities, as they should, get additional funding. Children who speak English as a second language get additional funding. A child who comes from an impoverished home gets nothing. Georgia is one of only 6 states in the union that does not wait for poverty in terms of funding formulas. We are going to change that. And thirdly, what I'm going to do as your education governor is to be an advocate for public education. 90% of our children are in the public schools, 10% in private. I want all our children to do well, but I will be the advocate for public education because without public education, I'm not sitting here. I'm still sharecropping cotton over in Clark County, Georgia. Education and a loving family transformed my life. Thank you.
I'll be the education governor. And prior to being chair of the school board, I was a public school teacher. That was my first job out of college. I taught middle school social studies. And y'all, it's the hardest job I've ever done in my life. It's also the most rewarding job that I've ever had. And I recently spoke to a middle school teacher who told me that if you taught middle school, you can do anything. And I said, I asked her, including running the state of Georgia, and she said, especially running the state of Georgia. So look, there is some accountability that we need to have on our school systems to make sure that administrators are spending money appropriately, especially our school boards. And I've seen that firsthand. But at the same time, the state of Georgia hasn't fully funded our education for decades. And we have failed our students and we failed our educators in the process. I'm going to update our funding formula. That does not account for needs that our students have, like those who are living in poverty, those who need mental health services, special needs, technology, transportation. We are literally underfunding our public schools, even though the governor's claiming that we've been fully funding the funding formula. The funding formula is outdated. It needs to be updated. But I also want to make sure that we're paying our educators, not just giving them bonuses during election years like Governor Kemp does, but raising salaries like you deserve. And the last thing is we need to stop playing the remediation game. We need to start early, which is why I want to invest in universal child care to expand early learning in this state so our babies have the building blocks that they need to learn how to read, write, and do math.
History shows us that the rising tide that lifts all boats is a strong public education system. Our economic development teams here in Georgia plan economic growth based on educational aptitudes and graduation rates. Our corrections system plans how many prison cells need to be prepared based on third grade reading levels. A K through 12 system needs to generate students that are ready for a 21st century workforce, a workforce that looks so much different now than it did even 5 or 10 years ago. Kids can graduate from high school now and walk into $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year jobs if they are able to attach themselves to apprenticeship programs or be able to close some skill gaps. Some kids are able to walk into a technical school and be able to take on a career and own a business, and some will eventually end up in a 4-year school. But it's literally the rising tide that lifts all boats. I think all of us, for the most part, know that we have to revise a 42-year-old funding formula called QBE that doesn't take into account all the things that we all talked about. It doesn't take into account poverty and technology and transportation and inflation. We've got to, and I believe this is a bipartisan issue. I believe that Democrats and Republicans can work together to revise this formula, to do the right thing, and not just play fuzzy math on budgets each year that is fully funded, but it's under-resourced. Making sure that schools and school systems and parts of the state are able to have those necessary resources that they need so they can produce that 21st century talent when it steps forward. And teachers, look, Brooke and I have got 3 kids in the public school system. Brooke and I met in a public schools in Fulton County many years ago. And look, we need to get back to where teachers are able to go to school to study and to be able to have a teaching career, not just a teaching job. We need to make sure compensation is comparable to their lives as they transition and grow their families.
Thank you. All right, so we started talking about affordability, and you each outlined what your priorities would be if elected governor. So now I'm going to make you think a little bit harder. If your approach is wrong, who pays the price and how? And let's start with Mr. Thurmond.
The question, please.
When it comes to your priorities with affordability, if your approach is wrong, who pays the price and how?
Well, if we began a process to increase scholarships for parents who have children in daycare, and if through evaluating those programs, we find out that it's not reaching the parents that it needs to reach, I would recalibrate, course correct, and not necessarily declare defeat. So look, none of us comes here with all of the answers. It's a process. And so what I would do is each year we analyze and evaluate the success or lack of success of any initiative, look at that data, recalibrate, reevaluate, and edit or change the strategy as we go forward. That's what leadership is all about. Look, you don't come to any situation with all of the solutions. I always look, quite frankly, I'm concerned about any leader who shows up in any situation, particularly a crisis, claiming that not only do they know the problem, that they also know all the answers, and they just set foot on the place the first day. What you really have to do is open yourself up to learning and being educated. What we did in DeKalb, I listened and I learned and then I led.
Let's move this way down the table. So, Mr. Estevez.
So, as a leader, I'm always going to be held accountable. I'm always going to monitor what we're doing across the state to make sure that it's working. But I don't think that there's anything wrong with investing in families and investing in communities, especially after we spent decades under-investing in our communities across this state. So when it comes to tackling the affordability crisis, I want to make sure that we're working with cities and counties, and I see some mayors in the room, whether it's Tucker or Stonecrest, making sure that we're actually working to build as many affordable houses as we can across the state. I want to make sure that we are doing what we can to hold utility companies accountable, especially those data centers, to ensure that they are paying their fair share. I want to make sure that we take the special interests that are getting billions of dollars in tax giveaways and put that money in your pockets where it belongs. If any of those issues wind up hurting anyone, I think it's going to hurt the billionaires and the special interests that have been benefiting from it for the last 2 decades. So what I believe that Georgians across this state want is a leader that is going to ensure that everything that we do down at the state capitol is rooted in community. And for far too long, it hasn't. So I'm always going to make sure that I prioritize people and our families and the communities in which we live.
I talked about creating a jumpstart fund where we wrap around the axle $1.7 billion worth of the state's rainy day fund around the issue of poverty in multiple ways. I don't believe it will ever be a mistake to invest that type of money in folks that are suffering some of the toughest times in their lives. Nobody should ever work full-time and still sleep in the back of their car. Nobody should ever work full-time and have to raise their kids on a different couch in the neighborhood every night. We've got to do better, and we've got to invest better. One of the reasons why I'm sitting here as a proud Democrat is because I got tired of being told I should love my neighbor as a Republican, but with asterisk marks. If my neighbor didn't look like me, act like me, love like me, talk like me, or vote like me, I wasn't told to love them. It's not what I'm called to do. As a proud Democrat, I'm allowed to love my neighbor with no asterisk marks. I'm allowed to look at opportunities to help people in need. I never want to walk by somebody who's homeless or hungry and blame them for that. I want to be able to find a state program that we can work with them, get them incorporated, get them back on their feet. Nobody wants to live a life in poverty. Nobody wants to have the difficult times. And so as governor, I want to lead the charge. I want to tap into people's empathy. Empathy doesn't mean you convince the other side of your opinion. It means you understand the other side. I think that's an important trait.
So leadership has to be both relational and analytical to actually solve problems. Now the fact is, we could spend a lot of money, and throw money and money and money at it. And you know who gets hurt is people who that money was actually trying to help. Look, guys, I'm a Christian. I got an R by my name. But let me tell you, I hope that I can break a little stereotypes and maybe a little bit of misperception of what that means for a business guy with an R next to his name. The fact of the matter is I do love my neighbor. And I think that we need to make sure that we're all loving our neighbors. We're serving our neighbors. We're recognizing our neighbors. That bonds the bounds of community together. And that's what's neat about this leadership model. I'm not saying I got all the answers in healthcare, getting back to the question, affordability in healthcare, but the knowledge exists within the system. And the process is a tested and true process. I know how to do this. I've done it at large scale. It actually empowers the people doing that work to make their jobs more effective, to make them more meaningful and purposeful as they actually serve their fellow man. Let's make sure public servants can be public servants. Let's make sure we actually expand the capacity of healthcare, which will bring down the cost, instead of just trying to throw money after money after money in a broken system that isn't serving us well. We have to solve the root causes of these problems. And we need competent executive leadership that knows how to do it, to actually serve. I still believe conservative policies are the most caring policies. And that's what I'll do.
Dr. King and other civil rights leaders said in the 60s about the issue of the day, if we're wrong, then God Almighty is wrong. Affordability is the issue of the day, and if it's wrong, then God Almighty is wrong. What people don't understand, in particular elected officials, even before Donald Trump came into office, folks were just barely surviving. You add tariffs to that, lower. You add high gas prices, lower. You add no health care, lower. And so now you have people who aren't getting by, and these are folks who have contributed to our American and Georgia society in great ways, and we've let them down. Affordability cannot be wrong. Affordability is the moral issue of the day. And that's why as your next governor, we're going to fight to shift from a minimum wage to a living wage. That hasn't changed in 2 decades. There are folks who can't even afford to go to work to make minimum wage to then come back home and can't pay their rent. There are seniors who can't afford to eat. They can't afford to pay their prescriptions. There are those who are struggling with cancer and other chronic illnesses and diseases who can't afford a $3,000 a month pill. There are folks who are elected officials in Georgia who celebrated as Democrats and Republicans that they eliminated the gas tax temporarily. That is a moral failure for Democrats and Republicans. The only reason you had to do it is because you didn't stand up to the fool in the White House called Donald Trump. That was not a win for Georgia. That was a shame on Georgia that we've allowed our citizens to suffer once again. If affordability is wrong, then God Almighty is wrong.
So I always say it. I'm the first one to say it, and I'll be the last one to say it. I don't know everything. I have ideas, and I have what I think are good solutions, but I'll admit when I'm wrong. Whether it's been in my personal life, my military life, I always do that. And I like to bring people in who know what they're talking about. I've been in the service industry and the military my whole life. I've never been a teacher, never been in the law enforcement, never worked in a hospital. I want to talk to those people. So if something's not working, I'll bring in the people who know exactly what they're talking about, and we'll adjust. We'll do after-action reviews on everything and figure out what's not working and change it. And I don't know what kind of Republicans everybody else grew up with, but not all of us put an asterisk by everybody's name. I grew up as a Republican, and I was raised to love everybody. That's what my mom taught me. Love everybody no matter who they are. And that's how I've lived my life, and that's how I'd govern. Because that's how we all get along. I don't care if you're a Republican. I live in Chatham County as a Republican. Most of my friends are on the left, but they don't like Democrat politicians either. Just like I don't like most Republican politicians. That's why I'm running. I'm running to change things. We're Americans and Georgians first. And hey, if you like one of the other Republican nominees or you like one of the awesome Democrat nominees, I'll hire them to work for me at the governor's mansion, all right? So I'll bring in all the ideas, all right? So if I had the honor of being the next governor, every single day I'd work to do what's best for every single one of you, and I would bring in everybody from all sides to make that happen. Thank you.
All right, so you might see those handy signs on your desk. We're gonna have make this a little different. A quick lightning round, yes or no. Let me see, I'm gonna step around so I can make sure everyone's answering the question. I can see everyone. All right, first, should the state step in if local governments block new housing? Should the state step in if local governments block new housing? All right. Should Georgia expand legal protections for LGBTQ plus residents? Should the state place stricter regulations on hospital systems to control costs? Should Georgia raise the minimum wage? This didn't come up, but I'm still going to ask it anyway. Did Georgia get the 2020 election right? And then, so this is a two-parter. Although issues like ICE, the conflict in Gaza, and now war in Iran are federal issues, as governor, would you, one, use your executive office to protect Georgians from ICE, including deputizing the National Guard? Would you use your executive office to protect Georgians from ICE, including deputizing the National Guard? It's just no. We got to stay on time, guys. That's why these are yes or no. I know they're not meant to be easy. We got us through a lot. I saved it for last, right? Did everybody make a decision? Okay. And then would you veto legislation that curtails Georgians' right to protest? If it came to your desk, if the legislature passed something that would curtail the right to protest, would you veto it? All right, let me see. Do I have any more on here? All right, I think that's it for our lightning round. A little controversial. Okay, so now we are going to move into closing statements. Quick, right? All right, each candidate will again have 90 seconds, and we're gonna go in reverse alphabetical order. So, Mr. Yaxter, you're up.
Genuinely, I want to say thank you for having me. I'm not invited to everything, so I truly appreciate coming and talking to anyone, anywhere, anytime. The Fulton County Democratic Party could invite me to talk and tell me nobody there is going to vote for me, and I'll still go talk to them. Because if I had the honor of being the next governor of Georgia, I'd want them to know that I spoke to them while campaigning, and I'd give them the time of day while governing, because all of us matter. We can't be red or blue. We can't just be 50-50. We have to be one Georgia. Something I like talking about, though, is the mental health issue that we talk about. I struggle with alcohol addiction. I hit 2 years sober January 2nd. And 5 years ago, I tried to... And 5 years ago, I tried to take my own life. I was sitting at my desk by myself with a bottle of pills and a half a bottle of vodka, already drunk. And God saved my life that day. I was by myself. I didn't make a phone call. But somebody stopped me from taking those pills after I already started taking them. I'm not saying that God wants me to be the next governor of Georgia. He has other things to worry about in the world than my campaign. But if I could just save a life with my story, it makes everything worth it. So whether it's that man who I saw at Kroger who couldn't afford a 6-pack of eggs and a loaf of bread, or somebody sitting at home who woke up with a little bit of light, and then the world took that light away real quick, and they're just going through the motions every day. Then they go home and drink or take pills to drown the sorrows out. I will always be thinking about that person with every decision that I make. God bless y'all. Thanks for having me. If you have any questions, I'd love to talk to you afterwards.
Ken is a great man. I'm just telling you, I met a lot of people. Give him another round of applause. He just, thank you. I appreciate you. Look, politics, campaigns, mostly about promises. And the people at this table made, I think, promises that they truly believe they can deliver on. But the question is promises versus performance. We can promise to feed the hungry, but you all know for 4 straight years, once a month, we fed 5,000 hungry families in this county. We can promise to be an advocate for public education, but you all know that when our school district was on the verge of collapse and the loss of accreditation, you called me, we stood up, and we saved the school district. You all know that your county government, according to a former attorney general, was rotten to the core, and we were on the verge of annexation and collapse of the CEO's office. You stood with me. We saved this county, and we saved this government. I need you to stand with me again at this critical moment in the history of our state, and we're going to build a better Georgia. I'll take the lessons learned right here in DeKalb County, all across the state of Georgia. We're going to spread the initiative. Look, when people couldn't pay their rent, people talk about affordability. We distributed $55 million in rent to families who were struggling right here in DeKalb County. We're going to take it all across the state of Georgia. Small businesses struggling, we set up a $10 million revolving fund. This is our opportunity. I'm Mike Thurman, and I want to be the CEO of Georgia, like you all made me the CEO of DeKalb County. Thank you so much.
Look, I want to thank all of you for being here this evening. As I mentioned earlier, I'm running because I want to give Georgians a fair shot. It's what I've done my entire life, whether it's been in the classroom as a teacher, as chair of the Atlanta School Board, as a state senator, and it's what I'm going to do as governor of this state. I'm going to focus in on what matters the most: your health, your wealth, and your opportunities. I'm going to make sure that as governor, we lower the cost of living, that we expand access to health care, that we fight for our democracy, and that we invest in our children so that they have more opportunities than what we've had. At the end of the day, though, I want to make sure that we have leadership that focuses in on you and your families. If you're tired of the old politics and the politicians that got us in these crises in the first place, then I'm asking for your vote. I'm someone that represents a new generation of leadership that's laser focused on delivering results and getting the job done for our families all across this state. It's why my campaign is building momentum, and we're going to get in this runoff. But we can't do it without you. I'm asking for your support. I'm asking you to join our team. You can follow me on social media at Jason Estevez, or you can visit my website, jasonestevez.com. But I know that we are living in serious times and that there's a lot of despair. What I want all of us to do, though, is we have to keep the faith. But as we learn at church, faith without works is dead. So we got to do that work starting on May 19th and finishing the job in November of this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Maya, thank you so much for your work. As I mentioned earlier, our family motto is doing the right thing will never be the wrong thing. That's what Brooke and I use as the cornerstone to raise our 3 boys. And that takes different shapes and sizes every day. In the post-2020 election, when Donald Trump was tweeting at me for standing up against him trying to steal an election, and death threats were coming in, and state troopers were wrapped around our house, and our kids were getting picked on at school, we couldn't even really go out to dinner. One of my sons came walking downstairs, and he took that wooden coaster that saying's written on, and he put it on my desk, and he says, "Hey, Dad, doing the right thing will never be the wrong thing. I'm proud of you." Doing the right thing was standing up to Donald Trump, but doing the right thing is standing here as a proud Democrat. Somebody who's willing to take on these issues. This is not the easiest road. No political consultant told me that this was the easiest pathway to become governor, but this is the right pathway to become governor. Look, a second place trophy is not going to solve any of the problems we talked about here today. Donald Trump is directly on the ballot. Burt Jones is leading these polls on the Republican side, and let me tell you what bad looks like. Burt Jones voted against the hate crimes piece of legislation that we were able to champion and get signed into law. Burt Jones tried to take over the city of Atlanta airport. Burt Jones tried to create the city of Buckhead. And Burt Jones is Donald Trump's sock puppet. He'll give him an office at the Capitol, and he'll run our public schools, he'll run our streets. Losing should not be an option for any one of us. I'm building the coalition big enough of Democrats, independents, and yes, even disgusted Republicans to show up and do the right thing on May 19th. Thank you.
Well, if you really want to make sure that guy doesn't get on the ballot, then you'll vote for me in the Republican primary on May 19th. Let me tell you, all right? We can do this. We can do this. And let me tell you, I've been out there all over the state, and that's what I hear. People are like, "Man, you should be governor." I'm like, "Well, I am running," right? And they're like, "We really need you." I've got this unbelievable grassroots movement going. Across the Democratic Party, this little lady named Dot in the Carter Center Board of Counselors came up to me and she said, "Yeah, I did Jimmy Carter's Peanut Brigade. I'll work for you." And I said, "I'm running as a Republican." And she kind of paused for a minute. She said, "I've never voted Republican, but I'd do it for you." That's what we need. We need people who can actually bring people together with hope and optimism. Look, I got no blood on my hands for anything politically that's happened, but what I have done, I got dirt on my hands from working hard with you in this community. When Covenant House had 15 beds in a waiting list of 200, I helped them acquire a 7-acre, 60,000 square foot facility on the west side of Atlanta. When a guy named Brandon Fleming thought it would be amazing to offer weekend debate classes for African American students to send them to my alma mater, Harvard, we did that. And for 7 straight years in a row, those kids who trained on Saturdays went up there and won the international competition at Harvard. These are innovative things. When Cafe Momentum created this innovative way to actually serve young people who've been through the juvenile justice system and give them their lives back, I helped found that organization here in Atlanta. Guys, we can do this with the right leadership, and I hope you'll give me a chance as your next governor. Thank you.
My name is Olu Brown, and I'm running for governor because I want to build a better Georgia for all Georgians. I grew up in a small town in Texas, and to the left was my grandmother, to the right was my great aunt and my great uncle, and his education ended in the 3rd grade. He was a high school custodian. He wore a set of gray Dickies every day. But that group of seniors who raised me taught me character and taught me courage. Last week, I took a break from the campaign to stop by the home of a woman who was born in 1929, who's in hospice care. And I prayed with Mrs. Gary, and I remembered all of the Mrs. Garys who helped raise me and make me into the man that I am now. I need you to know, as your next governor, I'll fight for our seniors. And not only will I fight for our seniors, but I will also fight for our young people. And there's nobody on this stage or who's absent from this stage who will beat me in outworking for the people of Georgia. This morning, my alarm clock went off as it does every morning at 3 a.m., and I woke up a little bit late at 3:20. We had a couple of workouts in downtown Atlanta at a local small business, and then by 7:45, I was in Carline dropping off my son. And like most parents, taking one last look at him and hoping that I'll see him after school. You won't have to convince me about affordability. You won't have to convince me about mental health. You won't have to convince me that there's a need to shift from minimum wage to living wage. You won't have to convince me to pay our first responders more. You won't have to convince me to pay our educators more. You won't have to convince me to pay our state workers more. I'll be on the front line fighting with you, fighting for you. My name is Olu Brown. I want to be your next governor. Go to oluforga.com. I need your vote, early voting, April 27th, and on Election Day, May 19th. Thank you.
All right, can we have one more round of applause for our panel of candidates?
And y'all, can you please keep it going for your moderator, Maya T. Prabhu? Thank you all so much for joining us. We talked about the blueprint of democracy earlier. They mentioned it as well. Who remembers when early voting is? April 27th till May 15th. There you go. And what day is Election Day? May 19th. Go yourself. Make sure you take someone with you. Thank you all so much for being here. All 350 people who joined us online, the 200 people who are here in person. Please share this link with others as well so people can hear directly from the candidates. This is one of the few forums that has invited all of the candidates to join us. This is how you make an informed decision. We hope that you will share this with individuals as well. Thank you all so much for being here and for engaging in democracy. Safe travels and a safe trip home. I'm going to ask all of the partner organizations, a leader member from all the partner organizations, and all of the organizers to please join us on stage for a group photo. All of the partner organizations, if you will send one leader, and all the organizers to please join us on stage for a quick group photo. Thank you.